Luke chapter 16. Luke chapter 16. I want to talk about tonight roadblock to servanthood. Roadblock to servanthood. We started a study last week on being a servant, and this series is not the kind of series that makes you feel good, necessarily, but it's necessary. Sometimes it's hard to get to preach the things that we really need, but my job is to preach the whole counsel of God, and so being a servant is not natural for us, and so sometimes there's a roadblock in the way. We've all seen roadblocks. We've seen signs up and roadblocks, and we came through a lot of construction and traveling to Mississippi and back, and through Alabama and through Mississippi. There's a lot of road construction going on, and sometimes the road's blocked off. And what's the purpose of a roadblock? A roadblock hinders. And so we're going to look at a roadblock to servanthood tonight, and we're in Luke chapter 16 and verse 13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. There was once 4 words that stood out in a bold print of an editorial cartoon, and they appeared as they were forming an enormous monument, and each letter seemingly chiseled out of granite. And at the base of this strange monument were hundreds, probably thousands of people with their arms held high as if they were worshiping this shrine. And then in very small letters, this caption appeared at the bottom of the editorial cartoon, and it said, "Speaking of American cults." And surrounding the borders of this picture were 4 familiar lines, and this was about 30-something years ago, were the well-known commercials: "Have it your way. Do yourself a favor. You owe it to yourself. You deserve a break today." And this was, take in mind, this was over 30-something years ago. And so the greatest roadblock that we have for service and being a servant is self. That's the greatest roadblock. We live in a society that is selfish, and you know what? It didn't just start with millennials, okay? And I was reading today about Venezuela, and I don't get into a lot of preaching about a lot of politics, but all the policies that they passed over the last 20 years or so, or 30 years or so, are some of the things that our country is trying to push today. And they're at the bottom of society today because they have done that. And so we see what will happen if self is promoted, and what will happen. The greatest roadblock to servanthood is self. Preaching on selfishness it really hurts because it steps on my toes. It steps on our toes, and it is true. And yet we applaud the I, me, mine, myself philosophy in a lot of subtle ways today. And it is very easy to do. It's very easy to put self out front and to think about self and to think about, well, how does this affect me? And what is this going to do to my life? And sometimes we get in that mode that we are so caught up in how it affects our little world that we don't think about that there's a roadblock for servanthood, that it hinders us from serving. We make books and movies on selfishness and bestsellers and buying them. We put those who are gifted up on a pedestal, and we worship maybe them. And so we're so used to this. We live in this me generation and in an age of unparalleled selfishness, looking out for number one and doing what we want and what's in it for me. And people are looking at churches even for that today. They don't walk into a church and they don't look around and say, well, Pastor, what do you want me to do? They look around and they say, well, what's in it for me? What does this church have to offer me? As if we're we're on a competition with other churches. And so that's the type of society, that's what we deal with, and we feel uneasy and convicted when somebody teaches and preaches on putting others first. But if we're going to be a servant, that's what it takes. Even the attitude of meism has infiltrated us as God's children as well, as we've seen. Jesus informs us that the greatest hindrance, he says, in verse 13, no man can serve two masters. For either he'll hate the one and love the other, or else he'll hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and men. So you can't serve both. You can't have it both ways, is what the Lord is saying. In other words, you can't try to serve me, and a servant can't hold to two different masters. You know? Wilbur Rees kind of characterized this attitude of people wanting just a little bit of God, and the poem is called, I would like $3 worth of God, please. I would like $3 worth of God, please, but not enough to explode my soul or disturb my sleep, but just enough to equal a warm cup of milk or a snooze in the sunshine. I don't want enough to make me love every man or work in the field with a mind now. I want ecstasy, not transformation. I want the warmth of the womb, not a new birth. I want a pound of eternal life in a paper sack. I'd like to buy $3 worth of God, please. And that kind of characterizes a lot of our society today. And, we want just enough of God to say, well, I serve God, but we don't want to really dive in real deep. So tonight I want us to notice some principles that can help us remove the roadblocks of self tonight so that we might serve God in a greater way. And some principles that we'll see. Principle number one is this: selfishness comes natural to us. I know that comes as a shock to you tonight, but listen, nobody has to tell us to look in the mirror. Well, won't you go look at it? We take care of ourselves, don't we? Selfishness comes natural to us, and it can be traced back to Adam. Our sin nature is fueled by selfishness because Adam and Eve sinned, and we're sinners. And remember in the garden, God asked Adam if he'd eaten of the tree, and he said in selfishness, wanting to protect his image, what? The woman. The woman gave it to me, you know. I mean, he really manned up, didn't he? She gave it to me. You know, we like to save face if it comes down to where it's on us, and we got to shoot it over. So the woman, he said, the woman gave me to eat. And so God said to the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And she said, the serpent beguiled me. You see, it comes natural for us. We don't want to own up and say, well, I'm the problem, and it's self. And so selfishness comes natural to us. We say things like, I'm not judging, I'm discerning. I'm not argumentative, I'm just simply trying to prove a point. I'm not stubborn, I'm just confident. We fight selfishness by, and we have to deal with it. It's something we have to slay. And most people, we must slay selfish through our ideas and our thoughts and our actions and our reactions, and they pop up. They just come up like weeds. And so we have to battle with them. And we can do that. We can fight them by watching Christ. How did he react? He said, if somebody smites you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. If somebody bids you to walk a mile, walk 2 miles. If somebody wants your coat, give it to them. You know what that did? That said, I put self to the back of the bus. And I'm a servant. And so if we're going to be a servant, listen, selfishness, that's going to be something that we have to slay every day. Something that you and I have to work on every day, because, listen, every day we get up. Every day we get up, we're thinking about us. What I have to do. Where do I have to go? I. But maybe if we thought, what can I do for somebody else today? How can I help somebody else? You see, it kind of takes on a different, kind of changes our thinking, that the whole world doesn't revolve around us. Some people think that everything revolves around them. Listen, we need to get in this. The servant realizes, hey, I'm a servant. Okay? So selfishness comes natural. Secondly, the second principle is you cannot serve two masters. As he tells us here, you can't hold to both of them. You're going to let one down. And the world says you have to do this and you have to do this. And he tells us that you can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and even mammon. He tells us in Matthew chapter 6 and 24. So whatever that other thing is, and it may be whatever. It may be somebody. It may be money. It may be riches. It may be a lot of different things. Sometimes it can be family. But you can't let that be your God and try to serve God. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Money is just an instrument that man uses to remain selfish sometimes. We're either serving God or we're serving ourselves. There's no middle ground. In Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3 and 4, he said, let nothing be done through strife and vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man on the things of others. And listen, I know that this time of year, everybody's thinking about, we say, well, people need food this time of year. Guess what? They need food the other 10 months too. We think about, and I will say this about Alabama. Alabama is probably one of the most generous states there is. This state gives. I'm thankful for that. Well, listen, we have to give of ourselves. Jesus served one master. Who was his master? The Father. And so he took his cadence from what the Father said. And he said, I'm the Father of one. And the Father said, Father, put others ahead. You know why? Because Jesus is even here. God put us first. For an example to us. We looked at this morning when we were looking at temptation this morning, how the devil tried to get Jesus. He tried to tempt Christ 3 times in 3 different ways. And if Jesus had been selfish, he would have took that stone and turned it into bread. When he's taking up that pinnacle or up that city, and he said, you can have all this, and then he would have said, okay. And he said he would have dashed off of there if he was selfish. Well, you know what he said? It is written. And what that showed was his service and his servanthood to the Father. What the Father said is true. And so, serving God, as we can see, is very important. Selfishness will block out our desire to serve God. Somebody said we're either becoming a slave of self and riches or slaves to Jesus and his will. There's no middle ground. There's not room for both in our life. Principle number 3 is this: serving God involves a commitment to deny self. Let's go to Matthew chapter 16. These are not the kind of sermons you get amens on. In fact, I preached this series one time, and I thought they were going to get rid of them. Because this is not what people like to hear, okay? But my job is not to give you what you like to hear. My job is to preach the Word of God.
Amen.
Because one day I may not be here, and you need to be grounded, and you need to know these things. Matthew chapter 16, serving God involves a commitment to deny self. Verse 24 says, Then said Jesus unto his disciples, If any man come after me, let him what? Deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life will lose it. Whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profit if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man come in his kingdom. All right. So he says, deny yourself. The Greek word here is a word this long, and it's not really important, but that word means to forget oneself, to lose sight of oneself and one's interest. In other words, if you're going to follow Christ, he said, if you're going to be a servant, if you're going to follow me, and Jesus laid out the terms, he didn't hide, there was no fine print, there was no terms and conditions that you couldn't see at the bottom, that you all this back. He said, look, I want to be up front. If you're going to serve me, then you have to deny yourself. So people were not standing in line like a Black Friday sale to be a disciple of Christ. And that's the way it is, and that's the way it always is. Because listen, he says you have to deny yourself. And we're not talking about just donuts here, okay? We're talking about, listen, we have to put ourselves on the back burner to effectively serve God. Serving God involves, and here to follow means to cleave, to conform to one's example steadfastly. When he says, follow me. So Jesus said, I've laid it out. You know what that takes? It takes a commitment. Commitment. Being committed to God's will and God's ways and God's service. We don't serve God on our terms. We don't serve God on just sunny days or when we feel good or even days or even days of the month but every day. Every day. We need to commit to serving Him daily. We don't get up every morning desiring to deny self automatically. It is an art to live an unselfish life. Listen, we have to strive to improve our service. Improve our service daily. Someone has said that sin has 4 characteristics, and they all have to do with self. The first one is self-sufficiency instead of faith. I need to do it myself. No, we need faith. We walk by faith. Self-will instead of submission. Well, I'm strong-willed. People are just going to have to get used to that. No. You want to serve God, you need to submit. Self-seeking instead of benevolent. Self-righteous instead of humility. So listen, the middle word of sin is what? Middle letter there? It's I. Okay. That's the biggest problem we have. It's not the person that's against us. We're the biggest problem we have in serving. Because Jesus said, love your enemies. Well, that takes care of that. What's the hindrance of that? It's them. No, it's usually us. He said, you love them and you forgive them, and then, listen, the ball's in their court. And we can't do anything with the ball in their court. We can only do it with ours. And so we have to be willing. Somebody said, like the one who had 9 great ideas, all mine. And it said this, my idea of visitation when everybody came to see me. My idea of sympathy when everybody's suffering with me. My idea of a sinner, the one who dislikes me. My idea of a meek man, the one who yields to me. My idea of a contentious man, the man who takes issue with me. My idea of a wise man, the man who listens to me. My idea of unity and everybody agreeing with me. My idea of cooperation, everybody working with me. My idea of a good sermon, one that fits and hits everybody but me. So listen, I'm telling you, the greatest roadblock we have is self. And denying self is like slaying a giant. But it has to be done every day. Every day. There are no off days in this person's self. The world may measure a man's success by the number who serve him, but heaven's yardstick measures a man by those who are served by him. And we have to learn, listen, to put I and me and mine and myself to the back if we're going to serve God. Somebody said the man who's wrapped up in himself is a mighty small package anyway. J. Sherman prayed, he said, Lord, make me big enough to live outside myself. And that's what it needs to be. To be a servant, listen, get rid of the roadblock. Get rid of the roadblock. There's a little poem that says self, and I'll end with this. God pity him who lives for self, the one who does not share the griefs and joys of other men, the one who does not care. God pity him who does not give to others when in need. God pity him who works and plans for only selfish greed. God pity him when sorrow comes and no friend is there, no one to grasp his trembling hand and whisper, "Lo, I care." God pity him who lives for self when the master he shall see. And Jesus says, "You've done it to them, you've done it unto me." Listen, tonight, if we're going to be servants, we're going to be servants. And what is a servant? Somebody who looks to the needs of others. But listen, this guy standing tonight I'm my own biggest problem being a servant. Because I want to do what I want to do, and not what God wants me to do. And so, listen, we can never err being what God wants us to be. So tonight, as we have an invitation, you might be here tonight and you say, "Well, goodness, I didn't know that I was probably the biggest problem in being a servant."